We are recording.
Excellent. So I'm Chris Christensen, and I am the creator of BloggerBridge. Within the travel community, some of you may know me instead as Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler or This Week in Travel, which is what I have been doing in terms of travel blogging for over 9 years now. But before that, actually, well before I was a travel blogger, I have been a programmer. Actually, I have been a programmer and programming executive and manager since, well, let's just say since Ronald Reagan was president, and leave it at that, 8 years before the Berlin Wall fell, and let you do the math. But basically, before I was doing travel blogging, I was doing creating of online communities, for instance, for a number of companies. And there's some logos you can see of companies that I have worked with. I worked at Apple and Talk City and TripAdvisor. And what happened with that then is I wanted something like BloggerBridge because of my role as a travel blogger, a travel podcaster in my case. And so I created it. And so what we're going to look at today, last week on Tuesday, we did an introduction into BloggerBridge focusing on companies and how they use it. And then yesterday we did one for BloggerBridge and focusing on just bloggers. This one is going to focus both on the companies and the bloggers and how you use it for speed networking. Now, I don't know whether we have companies or whether we have representatives from companies or whether we have bloggers with us. Why don't you just tell us in the question area whether you're a blogger or a company? And while we're getting that poll, I'm going to show you that what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you two different browsers. So I have one browser that is me as a blogger, and then I have another browser here which is me as a company. In this case, it's the company BloggerBridge, and I've set it up so that BloggerBridge is a company that is participating in, whoops, did I set that up right? Hang on, I have to log into the right account. So I'm logged in here as a company that is participating in speed networking, although actually I'm not participating. One thing we should say is that when you're using the speed networking feature, you're using speed networking. This time I'm going to focus on TBEX. We've used speed networking now at 4 different conferences: TBEX, DMAI, the Destination Marketing Association International, NMX, the New Media Expo, and then also a small business summit last year. And when you log in, when you're doing things associated with speed networking, you're going to be at one of the co-branded sites. And what that means is I'm not at bloggerbridge.com, I'm at tbex.bloggerbridge.com, for instance, to arrange speed networking for TBEX. And that will change a few things. It will change, for instance, what tags are available for your blog. You can tag things at bloggerbridge.com, but only a certain set of those tags will show up depending on what TBEX has chosen to make visible. And then it will also change a couple other things, like whether or not you want to show up for whether we want your profile to show up, for instance, for travel bloggers. So the main idea here for speed networking is when we first created BloggerBridge, Rick Calvert from NMX/TBEX came. I approached him and said, "Hey, would you be interested in working with me on this program?" And he said yes, but the one thing he really needed was speed networking. This ability to use this tool to connect people in these 8-minute sessions at a conference like TBEX Europe, which is coming up here next week. And so we have built that into this technology. BloggerBridge also does a lot of other functionality, which we're not going to talk about today. Again, we'll have replays from the 2 different webinars that we did yesterday and last week up to talk about those sort of things. But here is me as a company saying, I want to work with travel bloggers, and I'm going to TBEX, and so I can go in here and I can say, search for travel bloggers. And when we look at this from a company's point of view, you have to think about, who do I want to connect with? And I mentioned this to people on the call, even though some of you are bloggers. In fact, what I'm getting now is Ursula says yes. Oh, I see, that was an answer to the question. Blogger, 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 blogger. Perhaps both. Hannah from Getting Stamped Travel Blogger, company. Okay, so we've got mostly bloggers. We've got at least a couple companies here. Great, terrific. And so we're going to look at it from the company point of view because you as bloggers even need to think about how the companies are looking for people to make sure that you can more easily be found. So let's play a couple scenarios. I am a company, and let's say I'm a destination marketing organization. So I'm a tourism board, and I want to look for bloggers. What I use to look for is going to depend on where I am, and it's going to depend on what sort of things that I'm interested in. And so, for instance, I could say, hey, I'm a destination area and I want to look for some local bloggers. So, for instance, I want to look for people local to me so that I can work with them. And so I can get a list here quickly of bloggers who are local to me. Not very many local bloggers coming to the European conference, which is not too surprising. And then I can sort those based on things like Alexa rank, which is going to be an estimate of traffic, or I could sort it, for instance, on monthly page views. You can see here in this case that Randy hasn't told us his monthly page views, so he is going to drop to the bottom of that list. Or I can look at social media numbers, for instance, and sort this based on Twitter followers or something like this. And so that allows me to sort of take whatever search I'm doing and prioritize people. And so, for instance, let's say I wanted to just meet with everybody. I can take that off. Now, I don't actually recommend this search as much, but basically this would be a search of all bloggers who are coming to TBEX North America, and then I could sort that by whatever I wanted to. I could sort it by monthly page views, for instance, and I would see, you know, a set of bloggers who might be interesting, or I could sort it by social media, and again, look at people like who have really good numbers in terms of Facebook followers, for instance. That might be an interesting person to meet. If I wanted to meet somebody, I would basically just click on invite here and they would get an invitation. Now let me go back and invite myself. So I'm going to send myself an invitation that says, hey, I want to meet with you. We're going to look at that in a little bit, but first let's look at what else I might search for. So the other thing here is if I know that I want to do, for instance, I want to provide some guest posts for bloggers. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say who, or rather, accept guest posts. I want to write guest posts for the bloggers. So how many bloggers do I have who are coming who tell me they accept guest posts? And then I get a list here. That means that most of you haven't filled out your profile. Here under My Products, you can say, do you accept guest posts? So either only 2 people accept guest posts or some of you still have some work to do. And so that's one of the reasons why as a blogger you need to fill out this profile, is that it's going to make it easier for you to show up. So let's not do that. It looks like that's not going to work quite as well. Let's go back here to Will Meet with Companies at, and then I can say I'm looking for some adventure travel bloggers as well. And so I can search here and look for adventure travel bloggers. Wow, you guys really haven't filled out your profiles that well. That's not going to work as well. Interesting. Most of the people, so here's the great thing is if you are a blogger and you fill out your profile, so 2 different things. One is here's your products, and I got to that by my profile, update my products is how I can fill out that information. And then I can also go over here to my blogs and I can say for Amateur Traveler Podcast, here's the information that a company would see about me. You, if you went to my profile, wouldn't see this Google Analytics number, but a company can see my statistics because I authorized my Google Analytics, and therefore I'm sharing that with companies. But I'm also doing tags, and when I tagged my blog, I went down here to Site Topics, Travel, and said I write about, or I talk about, in my case, since I do a travel podcast, things like family-friendly travel.
Oh, and Chris, if I can interject really quick.
Yep.
It looks like the problem might be that it's only pulling up people from San Jose.
Oh, yeah, I didn't change it. Ha, 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 ha.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah, one thing I should say, as a company, you need to remember what I just forgot, which is that this is sticky, in the sense that once I put in location, that location stayed across my searches, and you were correct. That is exactly what I did. And so if I go back here to my search and say now I'm looking for adventure travel bloggers, that's going to be much more effective. Thanks. I was real surprised. So instead, now I have 12 pages worth. So again, I could sort this by Twitter followers. I could sort this by last name, Facebook scores, cloud scores. If I'm looking for doing something like a social media campaign, for instance, this might be interesting to see, which bloggers have bigger followings on social media, and so I'd see some very familiar names if I did that. Okay, great. Well, that's going to be much more successful. Let's go back here then to accept guest posts and say if I'm looking for bloggers who accept guest posts, for instance, because I know that that's something I specifically want to work with bloggers, then I'm going to get here 8 pages of bloggers that accept guest posts, and I might sort them again by how much traffic they get or something like that. Let's go back here and say, the other thing I might do is I might say I have a particular meeting that's coming up, or I have a particular, I have a hotel, for instance. If I'm not a DMO but I'm a hotel, I might be interested in knowing who's already scheduled a trip to where I am. So let's say, for instance, that I was in New York City. We'll put New York City there, and look for all bloggers. And this is not in New York City, this is in or traveling to New York City. And so, for instance, Adrian here, it found Adrian even though Adrian's location is a nomad. But Adrian, basically, if we look at her schedule, we'll see that Adrian has a trip scheduled to New York City. Where is it? Did I do that right? Oh, that's odd. I'll have to look at that later. So let's do Berlin, for instance. If I look for Berlin, I'm not going to find anybody. How about Athens? How many people are coming to Athens? Hopefully that's a bigger group. And here is both a series of bloggers who are in Athens, that is our home base, as well as bloggers potentially who are traveling to Athens. The difference is if I said Greece here, that's going to be only people who gave their home country as Greece. Oh, people used the GR instead. Anyway, so that's the kind of things that happen in terms of search. Again, I can look for people only with a certain minimum page views, only with at least so many Twitter followers who blog about specific places. So basically, you're going to use the search and the sort features to find people. And then we get the whole issue in terms of schedules. So you may remember that I sent an invitation out here to Chris. So that means I got an email over here that says, hey, you got a speed dating invitation from BloggerBridge. I can either decline that invitation and it goes away, or I can accept the invitation, and if I accept it, it's got to make sure that I am in the right, oh, that's right. This is the problem with trying to do things with two different browsers. It went to the other browser. And if I accept the invitation here as Chris, it's going to say, okay, it's going to look at the schedule for BloggerBridge, and it's going to look at the schedule for Chris Christensen, and it's going to bring up my schedule and allow me to choose which slots are available for both of us. Now, you'll notice, for instance, if I go over here to, I'm going to artificially say for, I'm going to make this one Chris 2X for a moment. Hang on just a second. I've got to switch browsers. Okay, so if I go back in here, and this is now BloggerBridge, BloggerBridge is currently completely available. But if I said, for now, I'm not available for these first 4 sessions, and this is how I would do that. I would reserve those sessions, and that would be reserved automatically if I had a particular appointment already. So now if I go in here, these 2 should no longer be available. Companies 279. Hang on a second here. Huh. That's not right. Have you ever had one of these? Oh, I see. I see what I did. I did the wrong one. All right, let's try that again. I did the speed networking 2, and I was looking at speed networking 1. Got it. So let's try that one more time. I just canceled that. It's still available. I'm going to invite Chris again. So I'm going to go back up here to search. I'm going to cheat because I'm going to look for San Jose. Oops, wrong search. Travel bloggers who are in San Jose, California. We already know that that's going to be me. I'm going to invite me again. Okay. Get another invitation. Oh, this is the email that I got when I accepted the schedule. Basically, it was, hey, you got an appointment. Go look at your schedule. Now I'm going to get another one here that says, hey, you have an invitation from. Let's try that again. If I accept this schedule, you'll see that over here where I took my schedule and I said that the speed networking, the first session of speed networking, the first 4 slots are reserved. That's why this slot is no longer available. I can't choose that slot. If none of the sessions are available, if you have no times that the person can meet you, then basically it will give you an error message that says there is no time that you can meet. At that point, you could try canceling an appointment and rescheduling, but basically, there is no time you can meet. At that point, you may have to try and send them a message and see if you can meet up in the hallways. Remember that messaging is another thing that I could have done. I could have, instead of inviting them, I could have sent a message. Now, the other thing that's important to know is that the person who sends the invitation is not the person who chooses the time. So whoever receives the invitation, when they accept it, that's when they get this page that basically lets them choose a slot for the meeting. Again, if something comes up later on and you want to cancel that, so if I say I'm going to meet with you, I'm going to meet with BloggerBridge here, then either one of you can at a later time go into that appointment and cancel it. Preferably, if you do cancel it, send a message that says what's going on, why you had to cancel it. If you can't attend and we mark you as no longer attending, all of your appointments will be canceled. So if something does come up and you can't attend, just let us know or let TBEX know, and we can mark your particular record as not attending and cancel all of your appointments so that nobody is sitting there waiting for you. Okay, let's pause here for a second and say, do we have some questions? Let's go back and look and see what people have put in. VP Business Development from escapeartist.com. Oh, yeah, I know escapeartist.com. I still have location. Yeah, somebody, Adrian, pointing out that I still have the location set. Quick question. I have the tag adventure just double-checked. What would add that? I think, Hannah, you're running into the question about why didn't you show up when I looked for adventure, and that was my fault. The problem there, as we say, was between the chair and the keyboard. I was looking for adventure travelers in San Jose, and there are very few of us. Turns out me. Don't skip Berlin and D West. So if you're going to Berlin, make sure that that shows up in your schedule, D. Do bloggers with lower Alexa range ever have a chance to get found in BloggerBridge? So Ursula, first of all, your question is the wrong question, but let me tell you what you meant to ask, which is, do bloggers with higher Alexa range? With Alexa, lower is good, higher is not good. What basically Alexa is saying is, if you have a 1 on Alexa, that means you are the most popular site on the internet. If you have a 2, the second most popular. If you have 100,000, you're still a fairly popular blog. If you have a million, then Alexa, which is doing a survey and a sampling, so it's not 100% accurate. In fact, it's nowhere close to accurate, but it's a good measure if you haven't given Google Analytics. Google Analytics are going to be your accurate information in terms of how many readers you really have or how many page views you actually have. Alexa is going to be an estimate. So do you have a chance to get found in BloggerBridge? Yes, but not as much. Let's be honest that as companies are looking at people and they have 2 different bloggers and they have 1 slot and they have one who has a bigger audience than the other one, if everything else is equal, they're going to meet with the one with a bigger audience. Now, everything else doesn't have to be equal. For instance, let's look at when I talked to the DMO San Francisco tourism board after the Toronto TBEX. They were telling me how they used BloggerBridge. And they went in, and the first thing they did is they said, well, they were in Toronto, so they wanted to meet with some local bloggers. And so they did a local search, found some bloggers, kind of sifted through them there based on whatever criteria, either audience or readership or social media, however they sorted that. They found some people they wanted to meet with there. Then they looked at New York. Then they also looked for local bloggers in San Francisco. And then they looked topically, because San Francisco is a big LGBT travel destination. They looked for people who were in that space. So the more you can provide information about yourself, Ursula, the more likely you'll get a meeting. But no, the meetings are not going to be equally distributed. I don't want to pretend that they are. We only have, I think there's about 30 companies signed up, although each day I keep seeing more and more companies signing up for the speed networking, so I don't know what the final count is of that is going to be. But you can see that as a company here, my schedule has right now only this many slots. Now, if I'm bringing 2 people, and this is something companies can know, I can add an additional chair so I can double the number of slots that I'm doing. And so that's how many slots I have total to meet with bloggers. So no company is going to meet with more bloggers than that, and they're going to just have to determine who to meet with. And yes, they will be using this tool to sort and compare bloggers. I don't want to pretend that they're not. Hi, Chris. Are there ways of easily identifying yourself by your skill set, for example, as a video producer? I would put that in your bio, Rebecca. One thing I would make sure you do, because as people go in here from the company point of view and you look at bloggers, remember the first page that I'm going to get here is this has no bio, Randy's information, and yet over here, here's a bio that says, by the way, I'm an award-winning, travel blogger. And so basically you want to get that first paragraph, you want to put the most interesting thing about you. And so please do use the bio. It will make it easier for you to be found, because they're going to see that even before they click over here and see your social media or anything like that. That was Rebecca. Hannah, I feel like previous TBEXs, there were more companies that were having speed networking. Is it safe to say the companies haven't set up BloggerBridge accounts yet? So, Hannah, I don't know what the final count is going to be. So, compared to the Athens, compared to Toronto, is going to be a smaller event. It is going to be probably the largest TBEX Europe that we've had so far, but that's still going to be probably about the same size as Cancun, but probably half the size of Toronto, which has been the biggest event. So it's going to be less than that in terms of total number of companies. Right now, if we want to see the total number of companies, if you're a blogger, oh yeah, we didn't talk about this. If you're a blogger, you basically are going to do the opposite. You're going to go over here and look at the companies that want to meet with bloggers. You're going to click this, basically look at information, and if you're a company, again, you want to have information here in your description that says what you're interested in, and some companies do and some companies don't. We even have a few, like Air France KLM doesn't even have their logo updated yet, and no description. Now I think everybody knows who Air France KLM is, but some of these, for instance, are going to be a little more obscure, like, what is map to app? You need a good description here. They've done that, fortunately, in terms of, this is a great place to put, too, in terms of these are the kinds of people we'd like to meet with, would be a great place for companies to put that in their bio as well, or in their description of the company. So yeah, this is how many we've got right now, and again, I'm seeing that we've added, let's see, we've got 20, 30, almost 40. When we opened up speed networking, we had 21, so we've doubled this here in the last 2 weeks. I don't know what the final count is going to be. Next question. Elaine, well, the other thing I should say is every day I get some email from a company saying, why is it that I can't invite people, and we find out that they haven't signed up. So not all companies have figured out yet that they haven't signed up for speed networking. We know that there are more who are interested still, who are in process of signing up, just from the emails I got yesterday. It looks like PageRank is the automatic ordering. No, the automatic ordering is by last name, as I recall. PageRank is not a particularly useful feature. Eventually, I'd like to get rid of it, because Google has announced they're really just not using that anymore. They really haven't for a couple of years. Certainly for companies, I wouldn't recommend ordering by PageRank in particular. And I believe the default search is last name. Okay, thanks. We were trying to, that makes sense. Okay. What does PR number mean? PR means PageRank, and it is a somewhat obsolete system where Google, part of the original Google algorithm, they rated every page on the internet from 0 to 9, 9 being the best and 0 being the lowest, on their authority, and they don't really use that anymore. And so they've announced that they announced a couple of years ago that it was going away. They announced recently they're going to stop supporting that at all. So that's probably going to be replaced in the future with something else that is a better better authority ranking number, but we're still looking at that. Is this what companies are use during the times when they are not at TBEX? So, D, there is search features that look very, very similar to this that companies can use when they're not at TBEX. They can also put in location searches, for instance, to say, for instance, when I booked a trip recently to Washington, D.C., a company had a location search on Washington, D.C. I basically never even got into BloggerBridge. I have my BloggerBridge account tied to my TripIt account. I sent off my email verification from the airline to plans at tripit.com. TripIt automatically loaded up my itinerary from that email, and then BloggerBridge connects with TripIt every night, knew that I had an account, and synchronized that. And so one day I booked my ticket to Washington, D.C. The second day, I get an email from one of our customers who said, hey, Chris, I see you're going to Washington, D.C. Do you want to do a tour of the Air and Space Museum? So there's a couple different features. There's also some features in terms of companies putting out putting out projects that they want people to work on that they're willing to pay for. Again, if you look at the company webinar replay, you'll see more information about that. They also have the abilities to keep notes on bloggers, ability to rate and review bloggers. So there are a lot of features that are not built into the speed networking per se, but the search is fairly similar. Carmen, how often do you update the social media numbers on BloggerBridge? Basically, if you go to somebody's profile and the numbers have not been updated in the last week, then we update them immediately. So sometimes when you go to profile, you'll see a slight delay, and the delay is we're actually going off to Facebook and Twitter and all of the different things and updating their numbers at that time. Chris, how often do stats update? Oh, yep, there we go. Is there a way to push through a refresh? Yeah, just go to your profile every week, and we'll update the numbers automatically. On my blog, my page, my stats haven't been updated since 9/4. Send me an email with that. Again, just so everybody knows, down here in Contact Us, this will automatically go to a chat to me if I am online. Otherwise, it'll send me an email. So, yeah, send me information, Elaine, about your particular account. I can take a look. Rebecca, as a blogger, what can I expect in terms of how to prepare for networking spot? Oh, that, Rebecca, is a great question. Let's talk about how companies can prepare and how bloggers can prepare. In terms of companies, when you're a company and you have all your schedules set up, so let's go back here and look at my schedule. When you do a print version of this schedule, you're going to get, whoops, let's do the one that has me in it. You're going to get this kind of information about every blogger on a piece of paper with your schedule. So if you print this out before you go, you can have just a quick shorthand view of who you're talking to when and some quick stats about them. This QR code will go off to their blog. I need to update all the QR codes for bloggers. I'll do that just shortly before later this week probably. But think about, as a company, what is the conversation you want to have with each blogger? Do you have a generic thing that you want from every blogger, or was there a reason why you picked that you wanted to meet with Rebecca? And write down beforehand, we chose Rebecca because she's a local blogger. We chose Rebecca because she was an adventure travel blogger. Here's the thing which we're trying to do with adventure travel bloggers. Similarly, Rebecca, in answer to your question, the things you want to think about is, one is, you've got 8 minutes total for all of you. So think about only talking 4 minutes and listening for 4 minutes. So what do you want to know from the company? What do you want to know ahead of time? And so if the company is telling you anything in their description about what they're trying to do, that's good. Make sure you've been to the website, learn what you can about the company, and then if you have pitches that you think you can make in that meeting, that's great. A pitch would be, hey, I see that you were doing something with this. What if we did this project together? If not, at least make sure you want to make a lasting impression. So what makes you stand out? If you've got a meeting with them, what is your elevator pitch, first of all? What are you going to say in the first 30 seconds after you sit down? Hi, I am. And for me, for instance, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to tell you my traffic. I have one of the leading travel podcasts. I get 1 million downloads a year, and I'm going to tell you that I just won these 2 awards. What is your elevator pitch? And then also, what are you looking? Why did you meet with them? Did you just select everybody at random and choose them, or did you say, I chose you because I see that, so for instance, I met with somebody in Cancun that does pet travel. They're all about traveling with pets. Well, my niece and my son are going to do a cross-country trip with the dog coming up here in December, and so I wanted to talk to them about how we could work together relative to that trip. Would they be interested in sponsoring? Would there be, information in terms of how we could work together? Let me know more about your things. And then I want to know from them, why are they there? What do they do with bloggers? What are they interested in doing with? And I'm probably going to do a larger pitch later on, but to a smaller set of companies. So some of the companies we're going to meet with, we're going to go, okay, so you're looking for that, I'm looking for that. Let's keep in touch, but it doesn't sound like there's anything we're going to do right now. And other companies are going to say, oh, you are working with this company, you're a PR firm, and you're working with, a travel insurance company that I know is advertising on some of my neighbors. I'd love to talk to you about that. Or, hey, I'm doing a trip nearby a country coming up to where you're going. So basically think about why you're meeting with that company and what you want to leave them with the impression of, and what do you want to learn from them, and what kind of pitches potentially you want to make. But again, it's only 8 minutes. It's the start of a relationship. It's not the end of a relationship. It's very difficult. Think about when you're meeting somebody at a cocktail party, you want to make a good impression. You don't necessarily propose on the first 8 minutes. Where are the replays found? I'm not sure. Deb, we're going to get those out on the email list. I'm not sure how people are going to be able to find the replays yet. Deb, do you know the answer to that question? Deb is being shy.
Sorry, I have to
I figure you were
unmute myself every time. We will probably put that on the TBEX blog. I just have to check with Mary Jo and how that will all be orchestrated. But yes, this is being recorded. So this one and the 2 others will probably be on that site.
So, which is nice, because that means the mistake I made in terms of how I did that search there is going to be there forever. So that's really good to know. The other thing I should say, actually, in terms of errors, one of the things that you're all going to do once probably, or at least is likely, you're going to get this email that says, from admin, that says, hey, you got an invitation from such and such, or you're going to get a message from somebody other, and you're going to reply to this email like I just did. Well, notice that this reply is not going back to them. This reply is going to admin@bloggerbridge.com. We don't expose your email address to them, and nor do we expose their email address to you. What we're probably going to do later on is we're going to probably make it so that the companies can say, yeah, go ahead and make my email address public, because we'd be glad to. We just don't want to do it without your permission. And so what you want to make sure is that you're going to be clicking on accept invitation, or if you get a message, you're going to be clicking on the link to reply. I should mention that, because that's going to be a common mistake that at least one person in the seminar will make today. My first time here. Do you publish reports based on stats and intel derived from blogs? We haven't yet, but we have started to collect. For instance, when we were in Cancun, we were in the middle of a press conference, and somebody asked a couple questions about, like, what were the percentage of bloggers that were adventure bloggers and things like that, and we actually had all that data, but we hadn't really thought about that as a report. And so we have started to, I've generated a report that tells us some of that information, but we haven't yet figured out particular reports that we're going to publish with that, but we're certainly thinking about it. We're looking at a lot of the data that we have in terms of how many Twitter followers, for instance, we have total represented by the bloggers and those sort of things. But I don't know if we have any specific plans on that yet. But it's a great question. Karen asks, if the company has approached you, would you let them start the conversation and say what they are looking for? That's a fine question. So one of the things that I did at the last speed networking is every single company that I was meeting with, I sent them a message ahead of time that had information about what I do. I had links off to information like my media kit, had links to specific stats. So for instance, if I was talking to a DMO and they were in Europe, I might send them some stats on different shows, in my case, that we have done in Europe and what kind of numbers they had. And so I had done some pre-work and sent those off to everybody. The one thing I will advise you that is, a lot of people are going to be traveling this week, so if you don't do that even today, they may not get that, but at least will be in their inbox at some later date. And so I started the conversation with, I don't know if you got the email that I sent with all the information, and some people had it sitting right in front of them, and so we could skip a couple minutes ahead, and other people had no idea, what I did, and had no idea why they had invited me either. So I wouldn't necessarily assume that they remember. So I would probably start with at least establishing, do they know who you are and what your key differentiators are. But again, that should be an elevator pitch. So think about doing that in less than a minute because you've only got 8 minutes total. And please, please, please do stick to the 8 minutes because you don't have a right to sit there for 16, and we're going to throw you out if you do. So we really need to respect the other people's time. So Sudarsam asks, thanks for the answer. I meant reporting on travel buying destination trends for vendors. Oh, not that I'm aware of. That would be more of a TBEX question. That would be information that they would have to get. And BloggerBridge is not TBEX. We are just affiliated. Well, Rick is a co-owner in BloggerBridge. That's really more of a question for Deb. Deb, did you want to answer that question? Is TBEX going to publish reports on travel/buying/destination trends for vendors?
I think it's a great suggestion. Carly will write that down and put that out to the community. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea.
And Sudarsan says, you can call me Suds. The only problem I had with your name was not that I couldn't pronounce it, but I know so many people named Sudarsanam that I was trying to put another syllable in there. My apologies. So with that, any other questions before? And Deb, did I miss anything in terms of speed networking that you can think of?
No, I think this was a very comprehensive, packed class in 30 minutes. It's awesome. Good job.
Okay, we'll give one more minute here while we wait for questions. Let me see if there's anything else we can tell you. Your schedule, where you did the remove chair, travel bloggers. Oh yeah, the other thing I could say is, as a travel blogger, the other thing that we get a question that it comes up a lot, which is you can also, as a travel blogger, you'll notice, search for other travel bloggers. And so I could, just while you're at the conference, this is not something that's generally available, and so please, please take advantage of this. I can, for instance, look for local bloggers. You will notice that as a blogger, when I go to Elaine's site, or when I go to here, I don't see, for instance, my Google Analytics numbers. That's not something we're going to show. Oh, I see it because it's me. Sure, but I wouldn't see it for other people's site. We show it to you and we show it to companies, but we don't show it to other bloggers. But that is a good way, for instance, to make local groups. So, for instance, I travel to Boston because I work part-time. I work half-time for TripAdvisor, so I travel there every month or so, and so I have a set of travel bloggers that we meet up every time or every other time I'm in Boston, and I found them basically through the search engine. And you can use, just for the duration of TBEX, this user search to find other people that you may want to meet with. You can't meet with them in speed networking. Companies can meet with bloggers, bloggers can meet with companies. Companies can't meet with travel professionals, people who are not registered as a blogger, nor can you set up an appointment for somebody who doesn't have a speed networking table as a blogger. But you can say, hey, let me send you a message. Can we meet for coffee or something like that? Or can we meet up at the party? You know, we highly, highly encourage other networking, but speed networking is just companies to bloggers, bloggers to companies. Is there a way to identify the places you are likely to be going to visit? So if you have a scheduled trip, then absolutely, that is where you're going to put it into your schedule. So if you go here to profile and you look at your schedule, you can see what my schedule looks like here coming up, which is, oh, that one's the wrong. Oh, yeah. No, I got to change that. So this is my schedule here over the next, through April. And if you have a scheduled trip, absolutely. If you don't, we don't currently have a way of saying I am interested in, although we do have a way of saying here on the blogs, for instance, if your blog is about a particular destination, then you can use the tags. For instance, if you have just a France blog, then go in here under Places and Europe and say that it is about France, for instance. So I hope that helps, Rebecca. Elaine, on the blogger side, is there only one chair? Yes, you are one person, and you cannot have two meetings at the same time. If you are two different people. If you're a multiple person blog, you both registered separately. You have to register for each individual person to the conference. So you two could meet at different chairs, but you as a person could only meet with one company at a time. Thanks for the information. See you in Athens. Okay, looks like we're good. Deb, I understand we need to stop the recording before we close this out, but thanks everybody for coming, and I am personally looking forward to seeing you in Athens. I should be fairly easy to find. I guess I'm doing the opening keynote, so if you see me up there and you want to say hi, preferably after the keynote rather than shouting it out in the middle, that might be a little distracting. Love to talk to you more. If you have suggestions what we should do with BloggerBridge in the future, let me know that as well.
All right, and as I'm closing the recording, we do have one more question.
Excellent.